That burger tasted 96% like a regular Whopper. If you're thinking 96%, are you that sure you're an expert? Yes, I've had more regular Whoppers than you. I know my way around a Whopper. About a month ago I did a video because I'd just gone onto a plant-based diet, and my main goal then was just trying to make sure I got enough protein. At the time I knew why I'd made the change, but I had no idea if I was going to be able to stick to it or even if I'd want to stick to it. In fact, like many things I just dive into and have a go at, I didn't really know much at all. But now I'm approaching 50 days plant-based, and so I'm in that interesting place where I can clearly remember what it was like to eat the way I used to, but I also know now what's involved in going forward the way I am. I'm sort of a knowledgeable beginner, if you like. And while I don't have enough knowledge to do a video the way I might on something like running or lifting, things that I've been doing for years, I can do a video on the 10 surprising things that I've noticed over those last 50 days as a sort of plant-based newbie, some of which might be of interest to you, whatever you eat. Two things quickly. First, if you've not seen that last video, I'll link it up the top, go check it out, because in that I elaborate on why I switched away from meat and dairy in the first place. For those of you that can't be bothered to watch it, or did watch it and forgot the reasons, the quick version is I switched because A, I thought it would help with eating too much junk food, because a lot of that rubbish can't be eaten on a plant-based diet. B, I like having to go at new things anyway. And C, my wife had gone vegan and I wanted to support her. Secondly, that video has almost 100% positive comments because people understood that I was not saying this is what you should do. I was simply saying, look, this is what I'm doing. It's no different to me saying, here I am doing weights or running or going for a kayak. This video will be the same, simply my experience in case you're interested. So don't be the I'm unsubscribing, you're pushing us down our throat guy, because that makes as much sense as saying I'm pushing paddleboarding with your dog down your throat. I never push anything other than try and be better, and if possible, try and be better than most. And hey, here's how I'm doing it. Number one, it is not the solution to losing weight that I thought it might be. My assumption was that if I ate like a vegan, I would be skin and bones by July. But now I'm surprised there just aren't more fat vegans. It is true that most of the junk that I used to eat I can't eat now, but there are plenty of alternatives. And if you aren't up to speed on nutrition, it would be easy to assume that you're eating well when actually you're just eating far too much. For example, hummus and pita bread. That sounds like a nice TV snack of a far higher quality than crisp and chocolate. But in terms of calorie consumption, it's a lot of carbs and fats. I could get huge eating this stuff. And on top of that, as I'll mention a bit later on, in order to get enough protein, there are also issues that can easily lead to more excess consumption. Now, having said that, the bottom line is if I pop into a garage to pay for fuel for the car and I'm hungry, it's just not as simple to grab junk as an impulse buy as it once was. And when my kids stock up on movie snacks, it's nothing that I can eat. So it has worked to an extent, but it is not the guaranteed path to a six-pack that I thought it might be. Number two, eating out is easy. It's way easier than I thought it would be. If you want to dine out vegan style, it can be very straightforward. We were in London a couple of weeks ago. We Googled vegan restaurants. An hour later, we are eating an amazing meal, as good as any that I've had in the city. It tasted great. It looked great. I'd put an Instagram shot up here, but I don't have one because the day I start taking Instagram shots of my vegan food sat in a Chelsea restaurant, I'll unsubscribe from myself. Anyway, if you're the sort of person that would have put some effort into finding a great place to eat before, then tweaking your requirements to find a great vegan place is just no big deal. I should add, our nights out are normally in London because it's just down the road for us. I appreciate if you're a little further away from the city or any big city, it might be that your choice does become a little bit more limited.
Hello.
Number three, protein is easy. Sort of. My last video showed how it was easy to hit my protein goals, and that hasn't really changed. In fact, as I've learnt which foods have most proteins, it's actually got easier and easier over time. I supplement with shakes, but I did that before anyway, and 99% of people that are lifting heavy will use shakes for simplicity, plant-based or not. The only issue I do have, and this comes back to my first point, is there are just not as many sources of protein that are mostly protein, the way some meats are. For example, you eat a tin of tuna, you're not also eating lots of carbs and fats. The same with lean chicken breast or egg whites. Plant-based, there are not really the same options. A lot of my high protein meals come with a lot of carbs and fats too. In fact, I can remember the thing from the Game Changers documentary that really made me dislike it was that the idea that protein sources are comparable plant-based to meat-based. Not really. You can get as much protein from beans as you find in a chicken breast, but you're now eating a lot of beans. Now, because I'm doing a lot of endurance stuff, I can handle a higher calorie diet and still be slightly in a deficit, which is where I want to be now. If I only lifted weights and wanted to hit a protein target and be in deficit, I'd have to put a lot more effort into managing that. It would certainly be easier to achieve that eating meat and dairy. Number 4, eating out is harder than I thought. And this might sound like it conflicts with point 3. The truth is, while point 3 shows it's simple to dine out with some effort on your part, if you just pick some random restaurant because that's where your friends and family have suggested you all meet, it's 50-50. My first experience of looking over a regular menu and realising out of 4 or 5 pages of food, all I could eat was half a portion of salad as a starter and then a bean burger, that was a bit frustrating. My feeling is it will improve over coming years, but right now, if you put no effort into where you're going to eat, just get used to bean burgers. In fact, the issue might have been the one that was most surprising for me because I just assumed that places had reasonable options. I'd always been aware of vegan options on menus as I read through them. I suppose I just never really paid much attention to realise it was often just one option and a rubbish one. Number 5, I feel no different physically. I'm not sure what I expected to be different, but nothing really is. Actually, I do feel better, but that's for reasons that I know are not directly related to being plant-based. For example, I'm not overeating right now, I'm not eating junk right now, and I feel better for that. But I felt better when I've eaten well in the past, whether that's included meat and dairy or not. And you might think that feeling the same is not something to be surprised about, but actually I read a lot of stories in advance about people having quite extreme changes in either direction. People with gastrointestinal distress as their body got used to it. Or the other way and feeling absolutely amazing. So I was sort of ready for something, and so far not much. And that includes physical performance. When I switched diet, nearly all my performance metrics were on the up. I was getting stronger, I was getting faster, I had more endurance at pretty much everything I did. And that's just carried on, no better, no worse. That steady growth in performance that I was seeing is still there. I will let you know the minute that changes. Number 6, people are weirded out by it. Before I switched, I assumed that vegan and certainly vegetarian was just a fairly widespread thing and just accepted. It wasn't really something that I actually gave much thought to. Eat what you like, I don't really care. But now I realise it is a minority sport still, and people react oddly to it. I'll give you an example. I was at a cafe with a friend and their friend. 3 of us are ordering food. Those guys both ordered some coffee and cake and stuff. I then ordered black coffee and I asked the girl on the till if the flapjack was vegan. She says, yeah. I say, well, I'll have one of those then, please, and that's it. I'm then paying. My friend's friend says, one of those vegans, can't eat this, can't eat that, fussing over everything. No wonder you guys all look like you're wasting away and close to death. Which was interesting, because the vast majority of the time that we'd spent at the counter was him describing the exact mocha chocolate latte frothy chino coffee thing that he'd wanted. And if I had to fight him for my vegan flapjack, he would end up much closer to death than me. Some people just seem unsettled, almost. Even my family, I'll pop in to see relatives and they'll offer me a biscuit and I'll say, no, I can't eat that, thanks, polite, decline it. And I just get met with rolling eyes. I'm not declining it and asking them to go and dice me up a cucumber. I'm just saying, no thanks, I'm good. I don't really understand why there's that reaction, but I think I might now know. Wait for point 10. Number 7, you adapt really quickly. Actually, this was Jenna's point. I asked her what surprised you about going vegan, and she said how quickly she adapted and now just walks past, for example, the meat aisle at the store without a second thought. It sounds a little thing, but actually she's got a good point. For the first week, you are someone that feels like you don't eat meat. You see a butcher's and think, I can't go in there.
Shut your eyes, Murray, and don't look at it no matter what happens.
You sort of define yourself by what you don't do. But that stops real quick. I no longer consider myself not a meat eater any more than I consider myself not an astronaut. And for clarity, I've never been an astronaut. 50 days in, what I don't eat is not really something I give much thought to, unless I'm having to purposely consider it for stuff like this. Number 8, some things are vegan and some things aren't. This was a learning curve. Stuff that you would think would be fine is not always fine. For example, wine. I just assumed wine would be fine. It's grapes, isn't it? Turns out most of it is filtered using animal products. And equally, on the other side, stuff that you'd think wasn't vegan often is. Actually, Jenna benefits from this the most. The list of things that she was surprised to discover that she could still eat is extensive. To be honest, there's not a lot on that list I'd want to eat anyway. Odd digestive maybe. But the point stands, things are not always what you would think they would be, although maybe it does depend on how much thinking about what is and isn't vegan you've done in the first place. I had someone offer me a coffee the other day. I was meeting them at their office for some work stuff. She's in her sort of office kitchen, she's around the corner from me, I can't see her, but she's chatting to me asking if I've always had my coffee black, and I'm making conversation. I say no, but I'm plant-based. It's easier than messing people about, getting them to check on whether their milk is vegan source or not. And she's saying, well, I think ours might be, and I can hear her rummaging through the fridge, and she says she's looking at labels. She can't really tell there's nothing specific, whether it is or it isn't. And she comes to show me, and I wonder, oh, is she going to show me some soya milk or rice milk or oat milk? No, she's got a bottle of cow's milk, and she's scanning it for a vegan logo. On the upside, she had a packet of digestives. Number 9, marketing vegan food is weird. Actually, it's not really weird because I do understand why they do it. It's just, I'm going to call it weird. There's a desire to label all sorts of products as substitutes or alternatives to meat and dairy. So you got plant-based chicken nuggets, you got plant-based vegan cheese. And I know why companies do it. They want to sell their stuff to people, some of whom will be more inclined to buy it if they can sort of mentally associate it with something they think they're depriving themselves of. So you got people saying, oh, I miss a sausage, have a veggie sausage solution. I don't quite get that need to link the new diet with the old one. From day one for me, having made my initial decision, I wanted my food then to be healthy, nutritious and tasty. That was it. When I eat plant-based products that we would choose to have with our rice dish or something that would normally have been meat-based, I don't need it to taste like meat. I certainly don't need it to look like meat. I just need it to be tasty. In fact, the other day we had a Burger King takeaway. I had the plant-based Whopper. That burger tasted 96% like a regular Whopper. If you're thinking 96%, are you that sure you're an expert? Yes, I've had more regular Whoppers than you. I know my way around a Whopper. And that was 4% different than most. I could tell it wasn't a meat Whopper, but that 4% wasn't better or worse. It was just a difference. If you like a Whopper, I'd be very surprised if that 4% made much difference to you. Number 10, the animals. Okay, let me say again, this is how I feel, not how I think anybody else should feel. I've got no agenda other than to explain where I'm at. I did not go plant-based because of not wanting to eat animals. I said at the beginning the 3 reasons, that was not one of them. Before I went plant-based, I was eating organic, free-range stuff, so general animal welfare was important to me, but I could eat a nice steak without a second thought. In fact, just last year we bought a huge Traeger grill for the garden for smoking huge slabs of meat. The sort of stereotypical meat is murder stance, often attributed, rightly or wrongly, to vegetarians and vegans, was one that I was just no way near. Now, not having eaten an animal for a while, I'm starting to feel a little closer to it. My kids, for example, still eat meat and I'll occasionally prepare their meals for them, and I'm a bit less comfortable chopping up their chicken breast than before. It's almost imperceptible, but there is a difference. Another example, I found myself on Facebook the other day reading some idiotic comments from somebody about exercising and training dogs. The subject's actually not particularly important, other than it revolves around their perception of animal welfare. And I found myself, the thought going through my mind as I read the gibberish was, what do you know about animal welfare when your Facebook picture is you stuffing a dead one into your mouth? I had to put my phone down and go out for a jog. I was turning fundamental.
What's happening to me?
Anyway, I think I know where that shift in my attitude has come from, and I'm interested in where it goes. Almost worried where it goes. I'm going to start wearing socks and sandals. I think, and I'm going to keep saying I, so that no one out there feels like this is anything more than my personal observations about me. I think this. People will say that nowadays people don't link the burger on the shelf in the supermarket with the animal in the field. I don't buy that. Maybe some people, but I think most do make that link. I did. When a huge slab of pig or cow turned up to go on my Traeger, I was well aware that thing was wandering around a few days before. But the bit in the middle, between it wandering around and arriving on my doorstep in a refrigerated box, the bit where it was killed, I think I sort of mentally put under a box. I didn't need to dwell on that. To do so would have served me no purpose. The same way as if I go into hospital for a knee operation or something, I don't spend a long time contemplating the actual process of somebody poking around inside my body. So I wasn't unaware of it, it was just out of sight, out of mind, and that suited my ultimate requirement, which was to happily eat the meat, so it stayed that way.
I'm gonna open it.
However, now that I have no part in that process, the animal going from wandering around to me sticking a temperature probe in it and making pulled pork, and I made some amazing pulled pork, secret recipe for the rub and everything, I'm mentally free to remove that box. I don't need to hide that process away, because not hiding it doesn't cause me to have negative feelings about something that I'm then going to do. And so with no box covering my awareness and understanding of that middle process, I'm more sympathetic. Sympathetic is probably the wrong word. I can remember in the past having conversations with people about eating meat when I was eating meat, and my rather lazy response sometimes to that would have been, yeah, but meat just tastes good. Which for me now, with the process of meat becoming meat, not sort of mentally hidden away from my consideration, that just seems a rather sort of lazy response. I wonder if that was born from my desire that my box covering the things I don't really want to give much thought to remains airtight, and hearing any alternative that might jeopardise that is dealt with lazily or negatively, like my guys in the cafe having a go at my vegan flapjack. Who knows? Maybe this is a short-term honeymoon period and I'll just be craving 100% Whopper tasting Whopper before the summer is out. Maybe it's forever. I don't know. Right now, I just do not have any idea. One of the joys of being old is that thinking about your future and concluding, I've got no idea, is actually quite liberating. Do things like that in your 20s and you're labelled as sort of directionless and unmotivated. So I'm actually quite enjoying the prospect of just sort of seeing how this pans out. It's like watching a movie that you've never read a review for. Interesting, I hope so. Drop me a like, subscribe. Doing those things makes videos happen. Literally, my motivation to make these things comes directly from you responding to them. And don't panic unless there is a gigantic demand for it. I can assure you that plant-based videos will be very much the minority on this channel, popping up occasionally to update you on my progress or lack of. In fact, my next video is going to be either an army fitness test video or a Zwift bike ride. Not 100% sure yet, but hit the notification button and you'll be told when it's up and ready to go. Any comments or questions, stick them down below. Just do not be asking me for the pork rub recipe. You are not getting that. Not for free.